Hey, I was gonna read something here. I have a hot cocoa. I haven't had a hot cocoa in a long time. I usually drink coffee. That's my coffee cup. But I was gonna read this, and I can't really seem to find it. But it's Samuel. It's somewhere in Samuel 15th chapter, and here goes. And now go. Actually, I'm gonna read this part because I was gonna read this chapter, verse 3, when God, Samuel, who was a prophet of God, who anointed King David, and he said to Saul, um, Saul was a king that I don't know the history of Saul, but Saul did Saul. God told Samuel. God told Samuel to tell Saul to go down and to destroy these people of Agaric. They were idolatrous, and they were very much idolatrous. They were, well, and so I was going to read that, and so the whole thing about it, and this had to do with, a little bit of leaven spreads the whole burn. Once you allow, there's many cases where God says, once you allow sin in the camp, that it'll start to take over and destroy the whole camp. You know, it's basically not with God. He doesn't really, um, and everybody has a hard time with this. Now, this was a war, okay? And so this was a war, plain and simple. There were systematic attacks being planned and strategized in this particular situation against certain people and against other people. So these were, I think it was the Amalekites, okay? And they did all kind of things. They took and a lot of these things they would take children and use children for their sacrifices unto the God, okay? And so, okay, this is starting to make sense to me. Okay. So Saul told them to actually, God told them to get rid of them. And Saul, and then God said, wipe out everything, because if this stuff has been sacrificed unto other gods, and so it is foul, it is contaminated, and it will not work for you. Okay, and I don't care what. I know even with my own sense sometimes, just a little bit. It's like just saying like, oh, if I had one drink, if I could just have one hit of crack, or a little, like one drink of alcohol or one puff of a cigarette, it don't work like that. It's like, oh, I'm going to just have sex with this person one time. That's all it takes is one time. One time for you to get pregnant, one time for you to get AIDS. But usually sin has the nature of it just engulfs and keeps growing and growing until it manifests itself completely over everything. So the idea with God understands that, okay? And in order to do it, it's like having a weed. If you have a weed grows up, it'll come out. You have one weed, and if you say, no, it's just one weed. The next week, your whole garden is filled with weeds, and all the plants and the flowers are being choked because of the weeds, okay? So it just don't work like that. That's why you got to keep it down. Whenever it rises up, you have to maintain a standard. Okay. Now, let me say that. Let me say this. One thing that has to do about the Word of God, one thing that was very instrumental about the Word of God, we used to have prayers in the school. And as soon as you took out the prayers, then you had guns coming into school shootings and stuff like that. It's just like, we just open ourselves up to a lot of stuff when you take out the Word of God. But in order to really fool people, in order for a lot of the agenda of this homosexuality to manifest itself into families and things like that now, is to you have to miseducate and take people out of it. So you have to give them an impression. Now let me just say this. Okay, I'm going to read the word, but the thing that got me is some of the miseducation and some of the disconnects. And what I wanted to really title this video is the title I wanted to do is a new level of crazy. You know, it's like, you know, all right, you know, crazy only makes sense if you only accept the first amount of crazy, right? Like, you know, you can go and, you know, 20 years ago or what have you, you know, a man and a woman, two men getting married is just crazy, right? But two men getting married and saying, or people saying that sex between a man and a woman, two men, or two females, you know, now that's the way they get it, because, you know, men don't mind seeing two females, okay, most men, you know, because they're females, you know, so, and we're male, you know, so a lot of heterosexuals been duped by that, you know, but, and so that's how it was first slid into the mainstream, and on TV, they could show it, and your kids will be watching, and what's this guy who went to jail and was crying like a baby, Girls Gone Wild. You could show all the homosexual women on TV, and until you start showing homosexual men on television. I think I actually saw that one day, homosexual men kissing on Battlestar Galactica, and so I'll never watch that show. It's too bad because I like sci-fi. But anyway, but it's just like a new level of crazy. It's like first time you do that, and once you get them to accept this a level of crazy, then you can run something else on, you know. And so, but the whole thing is just like how crazy it is, like, you know, that you can go ahead and say like, oh, you know, okay, there's two. It's one thing to say, have men and men together. Okay, but then when you start getting home and saying, okay, now, you know, and we know it's a sin, but that's okay. Now they're saying it's not a sin. and in order to do that, they've had to miseducate. And the first thing they had to do is take the Bible out of the schools. And what happened immediately is that the children started to suffer because children can't process stuff. So now all of a sudden this great evil can come into school where kids are shooting each other. And so, and we just had a shooting like that. And so that become really the acceptable norm. We had a shooting in Binghamton, not Buffalo, but Binghamton, where a guy goes in an immigration place and just shoots a bunch of people, you know, and he's justified because he thinks he's right, you know, but really he was just being crazy. But that's typical now. So these shootings are typical. So we kind of just accept it and it just goes on. So what I want to say is and speaking, you know, all right, here's another disconnect because I'm not going to get to this. And is how homosexual families or trying to be families, or you know the homosexual arrangements, and now they're saying they're families, okay, because one of them have had a child by a heterosexual. So this disconnect of saying that we're homosexuals for the sake of the child, we want to be a family for the sake of the child. It's like to put your children up to further your homosexual agenda, especially when you got them from heterosexual relationships in most cases, unless you have some kind of artificial thing. So there's nothing natural about homosexuality. It's completely unnatural. It's completely unnatural in the sense that that you can't even have life and children from it. It is totally dependent on a heterosexual relationship. You know, so if you just had homosexual and everybody was homosexual, a civilization would stop, which should tell you that it is absolutely bad for civilization. It will not further the cause. Now, don't get me wrong. People like to have sex any way they want to have sex with. Some of us saw this man have, people have sex with toys. They name their toys. You know, that's your thing, okay? But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't become, like holy because you want to, or pure because that you want to do it just because you can do it. It's usually out of another thing that is already bad. So, like, if you had handled your relationship with the man that you was involved with that gave you the kid, then you wouldn't have been so heartbroken that you would go and then go to a new level of crazy and get into a homosexual relationship instead of working out things with your man. And now everybody else got to pay for it because you now want to make this a little bit legitimate situation because you were hurt and you had a bad situation with your man. If that's what I want to say. It's getting to be a long video, and I don't want to wear people out with it.